Hello and welcome to today's video. Today's video would be the conclusions I came to after watching If. And If is short for Imaginary Friends. It's a movie that came out this year and I wanted to watch it at the cinemas last month, a few months ago, but it wasn't showing. So the point is after watching the movie I came to very some salient conclusions, about life in general. And it touched me so deeply. I felt like, okay, I had to share it all because I have a tendency to go off the rails when I'm speaking about something. I have compiled, key points of the ideas, like headings for the ideas, and I'm going to be reading off of my journal, the stuff I want to say. So the number one conclusion is that life happens. When you say something like, "Oh, life happens," people just conclude that it's something really unpleasant that probably happened to you that was out of your control. But for me, I feel like where I want to focus on is the out of control aspect. That I feel like we know this on a very conscious level that yes, we can't control everything, that goes on in our lives, or how life plays out. But at a very subconscious level, there is still this need to control, and so when things happen that are disproving that, like, or rendering that need unmet, like out of control event, we are very taken aback. We are hit, and sometimes it's even not bad things that happen that are out of your control, like very ordinary mundane things like a surprise. For me, I feel like I like surprises when I have an idea of what is coming, but then is that a surprise anymore? So surprises can make you feel out of control. I mean, birthday surprises or just wonderful surprises, like they can give you this feeling of being out of depth, out of your depth, but regardless, um life happens. In the story, this little girl, she's 12 years old, she's not a kid anymore. And B, according to what her mom calls her, she's, you know stuff happens to her. Her mom passes away from cancer, and then after going through such horrors, I feel like she had the expectation that, okay, now that she has gone through this big sadness, things just have to keep flowing well. But then her dad has a health scare and she has to go back to live with her grandma, to stay with her grandma her dad is operated on in the hospital in town, like New York City. All of that, the way she responded, it kind of felt like there was this obvious show of like a sense of lack of control, so, and then because she didn't have control over the health status of her father or what is happening to her father, she or her family in general, she exercised control, in other ways in her life. She manifested control in other ways in her life, like the way she kept on referring to herself as no longer being a kid, and being a kid is kind of that thing where nothing is in your control. You just allow life happen to you, and you're just taking about. So emphasizing of how grown she was, I think, was her way of reminding herself that it's okay, she has control. But that was just to me what I saw. But regardless, as the story goes, it shows that life happens. Whether her father's health scare turned out to be, you know help able, like something that you could actually take care of, through medicine, or whether her father was not able to be helped, by medicine and all of that, she has no power over that. She had no power over that, and it was very clear. Even we that were watching, it wasn't clear whether the man was going to be a lost cause or whether there was hope. We just, all of us, like in the viewers, like as a viewer, I just felt as if, okay, we don't know where this man is and like what the future holds for this man, concerning his health and his life or whatever. So it was interesting to see that from life happens. Like my point, when I read through them after writing them, I realized that they all led into each other. None of them are separate. But let's just keep going. The second point is life finds you right there inside your cocoon, your safe space. Despite everything that happened to her with her mom, her father still had a health scare several years after that. So Um, and then she had to move to her grandma, which was reminiscent of happy times with her mom, which was also bittersweet because then again her mother fell sick, as we saw through the early montage of her really, really toddler stage. You get so regardless of how much you want to keep yourself safe, you create this cocoon, this bubble around you, life will still come to meet you. And I'm talking about her father's health scare and her mother's passing, and the other aspect that is the main point of the movie is the aspect of her imaginary friends. Like her imaginary friends, her adventure with the imaginary friends still found her in this cocoon that she had created, this hard edge of adulthood that she had begun to form for herself. She still had to, her imaginary friends still found her, or she found them. Like it happened to her. She went on that whole wonderful journey, of reuniting imaginary friends with their owners, or sorry, with their kids, and also come to the realization of who the imaginary friend she created was, and how she had forgotten him. All of it still happened in that hard edge cracked, that whole shell, that whole armor of adulthood she had put on. She had still come into that wonderful adventure, that wonderful phase, that she would always have as a pleasant memory. So like it's kind of comforting, it's scary if you look at the aspect of the good, of the bad part. Like when I say bad, I mean things that we don't want to happen to us. When it happens to us, despite how we keep ourselves safe, we go on health routines, we do this, we keep our doors locked, we take the safe road under the light, street light, and things still happen to us. But then there's also the other part where wonderful things can still find us. We don't need to go outside of ourselves to run to be something that we're not, for something beautiful to happen to us. She was herself, like as much as she could recognize, calling herself an adult, saying she's grown, hiding away all of her wonderful childhood memories. Even in all of that, the wonderful experience of meeting this magical world, of going on this lovely adventure, even meeting the kid in the hospital, all of that still came to meet her where she was. She didn't have to be something that, she didn't have to um take any extra effort, like in this world where people be like, oh, we want to restart your life, and then there's this whole montage of them traveling to a new place, um meeting new people. No, not meeting new people, but traveling to a new place, starting over, quitting your job, all of that. It's not like I'm saying those things are wrong, but I feel like because they are very popular and mainstream, people might lose the whole idea of um life in that sense. Like life is still going to meet you in your mundaneness, in your everyday, ordinary, routine lifestyle, like existence. I mean, life is still going to meet you, life is still going to happen to you. Like the romance of a lifetime will still meet you where you are. The wonderful experience of seeing imaginary friends and playing with them, and reuniting them, going on adventures around the city, your town, it will still happen to you, even if you are living with your grandma or your parents and you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life. You don't have to break the bank, or completely revamp yourself the way mainstream media or this consumption based capitalist system wants you to believe. You don't have to spend, or you know be something, like do things externally. Basically just doing things is not going to, that's not what is going to make you experience life is still going to happen to you regardless. And that is like a very comforting takeaway from the movie If. So this leads into the third conclusion, that love is an intrinsic part of your nature, therefore it is unconditional. Like human beings, like because of the things that make up our experience from the moment we are born to consciousness, like this, what do they call it, sentience, where you become an adult, all of that, we forget, like we lose the idea that, like, I don't know if we forget it or we just let go of this thought of love. Like and I'm talking about love like in its purest form, like love that is not defined by relationships. And I mean even familiar relationship, friendship, romantic partners. No, love by itself, I don't know how else to use words for this, but like I said, it's an intrinsic part of your build up. You are built with love, you know. What you are, what makes up the entirety of who you are is love. And so that is why love will always come. People will like get pets and they fall in love and they discover new meanings of love that they never could never ever have experienced or understood, you know, before having that pet. You know, it could be a stuffed toy that you are attached to even as an adult, and you feel so much love, so much, I don't know, reciprocation of affection between you and this inanimate object that you cannot live without, you know, but it is love regardless. And that is why even imaginary friends, how meeting an imaginary friends, like it could just be, you know, some people might write it off as, oh, this is children's stuff, you know, imaginary friends are like, how real is that? But the truth is, there are imaginary friends all around us, you know. It doesn't have to be this cartoonish expression of it, but your toys, your, I don't know, your pets, you know, those things that you feel so attached to. It could be your favorite pen, it could be your favorite drawing board, your favorite brush to use in your digital artscape, or your favorite color tube, or your favorite, a lot of things, your plants, you know, that are living with you. All of those things, like if you think about it in the real sense, they are not human beings like you, but you love them deeply, you know, and nobody can invalidate that love. So I feel like in some sense those are also representations of our imaginary friends in this existence. And I feel like we should not, you know, minimize, you know, movies like this. Like when you watch animation or cartoons like this, we should not minimize. I know a lot of things are going on in the world right now, like Disney and all of that, trying to corporate capitalize on like animation instead of encouraging ideas and encouraging creations and encouraging artists, you know, encouraging producers, writers to come up with new stories. They are just like, you know, milking the whole thing. But I don't think we should, you know, give up on the essence of it. You know, those people, they will come, they will pass, they have their time, they'll come, they'll pass, you know. And even if they don't pass, regardless of that, we are still love, you know. And in the everyday things around us, we love easily. So that's one conclusion that if brought to me, like she B had no um escape. Like there was no way she could avoid the love that was bubbling up inside of her, that was seeking a home out. Like, you know, the love that was bubbling up of, like the love that was intrinsic part of B, you know, is always regardless. And she probably tried to stifle it, because when her mom died, she probably felt like that part of her is gone. And it's true, you know, the part of her that loved deeply her mother might have, you know, been stuck in this grief, but still other part of her still bubbles up with love. You know, the way she was able to love her mom and receive love from her mom does not die just because her mom has passed. That's my point. It does not die just because that love that, you know, existed between her and her mom is still going to find a way to pour out into something else. And that is why it created this whole adventure for her. I feel like that is what gave birth to this experience of Eve, because at the end of the movie she went back to that apartment, that room, and it was, there was nobody there, there was nothing magical there. Was an old storage that probably the landlady used to store things, though nobody inhabits that place. It's like an attic, you know. That shows the whole aspect of reality, you know, the whole mundaneness of it all. Like even if you, like, you don't need to have something outwardly magical, you know, something that you can see, taste, touch, you know, with your senses, to be magical for you to experience magic, you know, for the magic inside of you to come forth. So let's go to the next point. Is also interesting, like it leads into that point. Since love is an intrinsic part of you, you are never alone. Okay, because love is so beautiful that it is going to connect you with something somehow. Like, and so once you're connected with, when there's always something connecting you with other things, you know, you can never be alone. You know, they kept emphasizing it. Like the ifs were like, oh, the ifs here, the friends, the imaginary friends, they were like, um even if the adults forget about us, we don't go away, we are always here, you know. And I feel like that's also like kind of like a metaphor for her mom, you know, in the sense that she can no longer see or hug or, you know, touch or kiss her mother, but it doesn't mean her mother is gone. Her mother is still there, very much alive in her memories. She created her imaginary friend from the joy, from the love of being a child, being absolutely loved by your parent. That's where, that's how our imaginary friend came to be. So like our imaginary friend is a piece of her mom, is a piece of her dad, is a piece of herself, is a piece of the whole unit that they wear, the love filled unit that they wear. That was what gave birth to our imaginary friend. And for our imaginary friend to continue to exist, that means those things still exist. Her mom still exists, her dad still exists, the child that she was, that was the absolute ultimate recipient of all of her mother's love, all of her parents' love, still exists in that imaginary friend, and for it to continue to exist, it means that she's never, it proves the point that she's never alone. For us, like in your physical so everyday life, like you are never alone. Those things that you created in love, they don't die, they don't, those connections that you made in love, the memories, the memories that that came about from love filled moments in your life, they don't go anywhere. They're always there, and you can always go in and receive and recreate it and love yourself. I don't mean recreate it in the sense of physicality. I mean recreate it in the sense of just be in that moment, just allow yourself to be in the moment of love. And when she finally came to see her imaginary friend, for like see him really, she I feel like she was basking in those memories. I feel like she was being in those memories, like she was feeling the love of those moments. She was realizing how not alone she really was. She obviously she felt lonely despite how lovely her father was and childlike and free. It could not reach that part of her that believed that she had been separated from her love. But somehow, because of this thing she created, because of this moment, this memory she had, that manifested itself in an imaginary friend, she was able to move past it. She was able to you know find herself through all of that. So I hope my point as we said, it leads into the point of there is no separation. Being tormented by grief does not disqualify one from overflowing joy. And most times this exists side by side. Like what I mean is, like, there's no separation. You're not alone. So you can't be separated from your loved ones. You can't be separated from the love, that you are. We human beings, when we are born, we are programmed to believe that I am separate from this other person. I am separate from you because I'm not your sibling, or I wasn't born in your country, or I don't have the same skin color as you. But we are all just one big consciousness manifesting itself in forms, the forms that we know as human beings. So if we are all since we are all one big consciousness, like, do you think there would be separation, like any real separation between you and the next person? I don't feel so. I don't believe so, but you might believe differently. But me, I'm just saying, because this is my platform and I want to say it. I don't believe in separation. And although I don't believe in it, it's something that I have to, every day, everyday life, I have to come to terms with it, in the sense like when I feel really hurt, by somebody else's action, like I feel the hurt, I allow the feeling of hurt. But if I want to stop feeling the hurt, when I want to stop feeling the hurt, like I want to feel better, I just have to let go of the thought of, like, this person is doing something to me because I am separate from that person. No, this I just have to let go of that thought and focus on feeling good, for myself, by myself. So that's why the idea of forgiveness is not real. It is more of you choosing to, come into the awareness that um you don't want to feel hurt anymore, you don't want to feel sad anymore. You get, and I'm not saying when you say you don't feel sad anymore, so the sadness disappears. No, is that you let go of the ideas that perpetuate the hurt, that perpetuate the sadness, the grief. And that is a thought like, oh, separation, like, oh, her mother is gone forever. No, her mother is not gone anywhere. Her mother is still very much around. But like, I know some people be like, okay, what is this person saying? But it's okay, you don't have to understand me. You don't have to understand, but that's what I got from the show, from the movie, and it was just so beautiful to me. So going on to the next point, the diversity, it goes on to the next point that the diversity of one human to another is not limited to externalities, and it is the reason why we suffer. Okay, human, since we are not separate from each other, we are diverse too. Absence of separation does not imply uniformity. We are not uniform, we are diverse. And I know a lot of people, if you think of diversity now, people, because of corporate and capitalist ventures, we tend to think of, oh, LGBTQ plus people, we tend to think of gender diversity and all of that, but those things are like just a little part of the diversity, that we as human beings express. Okay, we are, like I said, we are expressions of one big infinite consciousness, you get. So us being expressions of one big infinite consciousness does not mean that, and us like seeing each other for the diverse expressions of who we are as human beings, it just goes to show that that is the whole point of existence. The diversity of us is the joy of existing, is the joy I feel like that consciousness takes from existence. Consciousness takes from expressions of different sort of human beings, like all of the trauma. I said the second part of it was that I said that is why we suffer. All of the traumas that we go through, coming up, from the point of helplessness as infants up to this point of supposed independence as adults. Even as independent adults, we still suffer, we still go through trauma, we still experience things that mark us deeply. All of those markings, all of those things, all those sufferings, that create the shape of our soul, that color the kind of souls that we have, that color our body. I said it's not externalities, but all of it, coming together makes you who you are. Not just because all of you have penises or vaginas, you're all girls or you're all boys. No, you are different, and everything that you have experienced growing up from infanthood to adulthood, or if you are a teenager, all of that, it makes you who you are. It's the diversity of your existence. And I feel like if you don't come to terms with your diversity, you are going to suffer, because you will be caught in this cycle of comparison, this cycle of suffering, where you cannot accept, certain limitations, or should not be something that makes us begin to think that, okay, maybe there's something wrong with us, maybe we are just wrong for existing because of how diverse we are. No, 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 no. Coming to terms with your diversity, every time you come to the awareness of a way you are diverse from another person, gives you peace of mind. Even in the midst of the suffering that entails that diversity, like people that are being persecuted for their sexual orientation, the peace of mind they have is not because they are no longer suffering, it's because regardless of the suffering, they are who they are. You get, I hope I make sense. And I came to that conclusion from if in the moment where B, went from such a happy childhood to struggling as an adolescent, you get, and like even in the midst of the struggling, you get, she was in her grandma's place, she was minding her business, she didn't relate with anybody else, although there was nobody else in their compound, but she was lonely, and in the midst of that, she still found such a magical world. Like she came across the bumblebee. What's her name? Is it Dorothy or something? But she came across the bumblebee, her grandmother's imaginary friend, and it led her down like a rabbit hole of just colors and magic and funny events, and loving hugs and light and peace. It was just wonderful to see like somebody illustrate that through this medium of cartoons and storytelling and movies. It's just, the diversity is why we suffer. Diversity is why we suffer, but we don't have to always suffer. When you come to terms with your diversity, I feel like your suffering becomes like takes the back seat. you know your suffering takes the back seat. This, I wrote it as, the suffering is infinite awareness enjoying the experience of being human. How can you go from being everything and nothing at the same time to being to expressing yourself as a human being? What makes that experience of a human being different from being infinite awareness? It is experiences like suffering that really give meaning to the experience of being a human being. I hope that makes sense. Like, a lot of things I'm saying might not be coherent, but it's okay. It's okay. Somebody will understand this. And then the next point is something more very, very clear from the movie. The point of reunion between the adults with their ifs is not to become the extreme of child, that is making the adult childlike, or the extreme of adult, that is making the ifs adult like, you know. Instead, it is a coming together, an integration of both that would form some indefinable multiplicity of being for both parties, you know, new but familiar, whimsy meshed with groundedness, stark realities colored still by endless possibilities. There is no lines of meeting and ending, it's just one unique flavor of mesh. And I hope this is very clear cut. This is so beautiful. And this is like the main point I got from the movie. If it's like, the people might be like there are, where I watched it, there were comments where people were like saying, oh, adults missing their eves, ha ha ha, what is that all about? And it's like, that is the point. It's no longer a child that created Eve. You're now like an adult that is coming to terms with this part of you that never died. The Eves never died. That means like it's like a metaphor for your childlikeness. Your child self doesn't die because you are an adult. You can suppress it, you can forget about it, but it is always there. And if you let it be, you can bring newness into this life that you live. Like I said, you don't need to do something impressive outwardly to change your life. Changing your life can be as easy as coming into the remembrance of who you were as a child, and letting it take you wherever it leads. You understand? Like when Janet found her own imaginary friend in the parking lot with the nightlight, when Blue met up with Jeremy, when like every uni met up with that secretary, when Keith met up with the father, like all of that is so, it was so beautiful to me. I like the fact that they included that part. Like it just makes sense to me. Like, of course, it's not about meeting new kids for the Eve, because the Eves were like, okay, they have been forgotten by their kids, like they are. And then Calvin was like, Calvin, that's played by Ryan Reynolds, he was like, okay, what do? We match them up with new kids. And then he tried to match up Blue with a new kid, and the kid had a whole scream fest. Like she cried for an hour and all of that. And it's like, that makes sense. Like you can't force something that is not there. Trying to separate them from their kids is impossible, because that is the kid. That is a moment in their life. That is their parent. That is the experiences they had. The reason why they needed an imaginary friend. All of it is wrapped up in the being of that imaginary friend. And it made sense to reunite them, even though they're never separated. It made sense for the imaginary friends to be reunited with their original kids that are now grown adults, because when they meet up, all of those things will flow together, creating this wonderful mix, this newness of being, this newness of life that has never been felt by this person before, or the Eves before. Do you understand? Like I don't know if that makes sense, but to me it makes perfect sense. Like, whew, yes, like I'm so happy they included that part of it. And it's okay for people to feel that was cheesy, they feel jaded about such reunions. And it's like, it's not the Eves reunion, it is you reuniting with yourself. It's you coming to terms with everything that you are, the things that you suppressed because you felt it would not survive in this harsh cold world, and realizing that that is exactly why that thing is there. That is why the imaginary friends exist, is for it to take you along this journey through a world that you see as cold and harsh. You get, I feel like when I'm editing this, I'm going to want to add more, but like, let's just keep going. And the final conclusion is that uncertainty is the certainty of life. And acceptance of that brings immense comfort and allows one to truly live. The uncertainty of you know, B's future with her only surviving parents, cannot be taken away. You know, you can't, because our father had a heart operation, and that is something that needs to be maintained, you know, as he continues to live. So there will always be scares, there will always be health scares. And I feel like this whole moment, this adventure with the Eves, brought her to terms with that fact that it's okay to live a life that is uncertain, you know. But while living this life that is uncertain, you don't have to cut off the part of you that enjoys the moment. You understand? Like, if you ask it, like, children are very short term, they don't have, if you talk to a child this second, like, talk to him the next 2 seconds, like second after that second, and they don't remember what you said the second before. That's just who they are, you know. So, and people, the idea of growing up is losing all of that freedom, losing that um that momentary style of existence, like losing yourself in the moment. You lose it as you grow up, because people will come to remind you that you can't live moment to moment. You must remember what happened in the past so that you can be this. And it's like, in that process, ironically enough, the idea of accumulating memories of, or keeping past hurt so that you can be prepared for the future, now makes you lose the most important part of yourself that is also in the past. You get, like, I don't know how that, like, if you lose the idea of growing up, means okay, you have to put off childishness, you get, put off childlike behaviors, childlike ideologies and all of that, you know, to be an actual adult. And the idea of being an adult is that you have to keep things in your head, keep things in your memory, prepare for the future, do this, do that. And it's like, so, but why do we have to now lose this part of us that has passed? You get, I don't know if that makes sense. But the point is that the point is that B, in the moment where she found out that her father was going to be okay, you know, and they had this whole moment and hugging, and then she went home and she couldn't see Calvin anymore. And then later on, she could see Calvin and she saw all of them and they hugged and everything. She remembered, and it's just like everything, you know, you just have to come. That's just what life is. You know, this whole mesh of experiences, sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's scary, sometimes it's comforting, sometimes it's adventurous, sometimes it's magical, and sometimes it's just cold, harsh, you know, facts. You know, all of that, you know, makes up this uncertainty that we feel in every moment that we are awake, we are conscious. Like, you can never be sure of the next moment. But still, not being sure of next moment does not mean we should put ourselves in a state of constant vigilance, constant jadedness, cynicism, this shell of hard won, you know, grit. No, we don't need to do that to ourselves. We can allow ourselves to be childlike and live in the moment. I don't know about the next moment, but in this moment, this is how I feel and I like it, or this is how I feel and I'll feel what I'm feeling. You get, and then allow the next moment to bring what it brings, basically. Like, when you accept, you come into acceptance, and that's one thing that adulthood kind of rallies against. Acceptance is all about fighting, controlling, you know, trying to prepare for the worst, or trying to control things to the best of your ability, you know, anxiety, struggle, which is all very valid. But while those parts of you are existing, you can still allow your childlike self to be, the softness, the vulnerabilities, the unknowingness. Like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen, and it's okay. It's okay. Like, the fun of it, like, oh, you have an assignment due, you know. But in this moment, you feel so happy. You feel like listening to music, and you allow yourself to enjoy the music for the 3 minutes or 2 minutes that it plays, you know. Like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to perform like in the test or the job interview. I don't know if I'm going to have a job ever. I don't know if this channel is going to succeed or something. But in the moment I'm in, I'm just making my videos, and making my videos is fun to me. I like it. I love the process of it. And if I focus on that, I feel much at peace than worrying about like things that are out of my control, you know, aka the future of the channel, the future of me as whatever it is I'm doing. You get, just focus on, oh, I made a video today. I'm so proud of the video I made, and it's uploaded. That's all. Finish. And with that, I come to the end of my points about the movie, my conclusions about the movie. If this video is long, and I don't know if I stay true to course, but my points definitely helped. Outlining my points definitely helped, which I think I'm going to be doing instead of narrating stories. Like I can just be like, I recommend this movie to you. I tell you my conclusions about it, and if you've not seen it, you can go check it out, and then tell me what you think about my points, or what you think, or what you got yourself from the movie or the show that I recommended. So with that, I've come to the end of this video. Thank you for being here, and I hope you can come to full acceptance, even if not full, but like just a steady acceptance that life is what it is. But that does not stop you from being. So bye bye.